Happy anniversary to Immaculate Conception Regional School. We are proud to celebrate 71 graduating classes here in the Skagit Valley. My name is Gwen Rodriguez and I'm the principal at the school and your host today. I grew up in a big Catholic family of 8 kids. My parents were committed to giving each of us a Catholic education, kindergarten to 12th grade. I'm the proud graduate of Mercy High School in San Francisco. When I married and moved to Washington, I made it very clear to my husband that wherever we move to, there has to be a Catholic church and most certainly a Catholic school. It was most important to me that my children receive an excellent Catholic education, coupled with that great sense of community that Catholic schools provide. To me, ICRS feels like a big, happy extension of my own family. I started here as a parent in 2002, a teacher in 2006, and I've been principal here since 2013. In my Catholic school experience, I'm proud to say that Immaculate Conception Regional School most certainly exudes the presence of the Holy Spirit. Welcome to our anniversary celebration, albeit online this year. I am so grateful to our founders, Father Joseph Brennan, Mr. George Michael Dines, Mr. William Hofstee, and Mr. Oscar Lecomte, and of course, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace. Their vision and commitment to Catholic education 71 plus years ago provide a Catholic education for the children of the Skagit Valley and surrounding areas today. This year, we're hosting you online, and we have some very special guests lined up for you today. Our first speaker is Sister Julie. Sister Julie taught here from 1968 to 1975. Sister Julie, it is so good to have you at our anniversary celebration.
Hi, I'm Sister Julie. Well, happy anniversary. It's wonderful to be able to congratulate you after all these years, having a school there in Mount Vernon. It's been a real blessing for the community. It was on the playground of Immaculate Conception School at that time, and there were like portables, and the babies would be left there, and I was part of the baby worker group. Took care of the babies while the parents were in the strawberry fields picking, and that was my first introduction to Immaculate Conception School. I thought I was going to be going to St. Louis School at the end of the summer, but instead I got assigned there to stay and take up first grade. And I had taught first grade at Sacred Heart in Bellevue for 2 years, and so I was given the assignment of another first grade at Immaculate Conception School. So it was a great, wonderful school, and Sister Verona was the principal at the time. So I taught 2 years there, and then I was transferred up to Ketchikan, Alaska, and I taught up there. I taught first grade and third grade there in the 2 years I was there, and that was quite an experience up there. Then I was transferred back, and I taught third grade then at Immaculate. So in 1967 to 70, I was there the first time, and in 1972 to 76, I came the second time. One couple of students I had to repeat, and they got me again in third grade. Poor kids. Sister Una was the principal at the time, and she had made a big map of the United States on the playground, had painted it, and so a lot of times our teacher would take us out, or we would take the children out and then have them find the states and name the capitals of the states. We played a game, I think, and at recess they played the game too. So it was a good way to teach this to the children. There was the preschool was started, and it was in the basement of the convent. So it gradually grew, and it was pretty simple at first, and then we only used one room, and then we had 2 rooms. So it was really quite a deal having that. You know, that little a corner where they could pray, you know, and they have their, and it was so dear. It was really special. And they put their heads down and say, now we're going to pray, and they just pray so hard. You know, they knew what they were doing. Sometimes my little religion classes took off, and they were just, I'd go on and on, but they seemed to be interested. I remember seeing some of my students there. It was really wonderful. I think I saw John Lavera,
Okay.
and he was a special little boy. He used to come in first grade. He would run home because he lived real close, and he'd come and help me. He'd bring a ding dong for me, and he'd come and help me want to correct papers with me every day. I did a lot of home visiting with, I think it maybe the Come to the Father program, visiting the families of the children in first grade. In first grade. So I got to know the families. It was really special. One of the things I remember about my time in the classroom was I must have been sort of an actress, because every time there was a recess, the girls would want to stay in and practice a play. Well, let's see. And sometimes I'd say, well, why did you practice outside, and then we can see it. So they'd come in and they'd be pretending to be me. So those were the years where I could see how I was doing or not doing. Happy anniversary, ICRS. It's been just such an important part of who we are as human beings. I think to have our children well grounded in their what's going to matter most. We give children roots and wings, and then they really can be leaders in their own right, wherever they are. Give them a whole sense of themselves. And because we're able to teach religion, about their faith, and living it, the living of it is so important. And we really are, it's especially important that they learn how to treat each other with kindness and respect, because it doesn't get any easier out there, and that they learn the basics in the Catholic school. I really would hope you could continue to support this in any way you can. Thank you.
Father Paul is our next speaker. I will have to say he is one of our greatest supporters. Father Paul has been serving on and off in the Skagit Valley since 1991, and he too is in our Graduate Hall of Fame. Father Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome, good friends. This is Father Paul Magnano. Happy 71st anniversary. I was the pastor up here some 30 years ago, and look at my shirt. We've got the Spirit. This was the 40th anniversary of Immaculate Conception Regional School. The school had the Spirit 71 years ago. The Spirit is still at work at Immaculate Conception Regional School today and tomorrow and yesterday. I was here for the 40th and beyond, and we'll be around another celebration coming up 100 years, because we've got the Spirit. I would consider myself a transition pastor as far as the school goes. I was pastor here in the 5 churches back in the late 80s and in the 90s, and I was privileged to be the pastor, of course, of Immaculate Conception School. Let me mention 4 things that were important in my time as pastor here in the Skagit Valley churches. Number 1, we had to say goodbye to the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace. Sister Angela, longtime principal, stepped back, and Sister Elizabeth Lenane, for 1 year, became our interim principal. And that ended the on-site role of the sisters, whose spirit continues to animate our school. It was a transition from the sisters to our lay principals. And what a blessing both the sisters and our principals have been over these 71 years. When I came the pastor, we were a school of just the Mount Vernon Church, Immaculate Conception School. But it became clear that other parishes wanted and did in fact support our school. So we spent a one-day discernment with each of the then 6 Skagit Valley churches. What if we make this a school for all the churches? And that was our decision. And at that point, back in 1991, this became Immaculate Conception Regional School, supported by St. Catherine at Concrete, Immaculate Conception Church right here in Mount Vernon, Immaculate Heart of Mary in Cedro Woolley, St. Charles, Sacred Heart La Conner, St. Paul at the Swinomish Reservation. And since then, we've been joined by other churches, Anacortes, Oak Harbor, Stanwood, Arlington, and so forth. We are a school of spirit, the Immaculate Conception Regional School. And of course, we had to support that school, particularly in challenging times. We needed to grow, and we established, thanks to generous benefactors, the Immaculate Conception Regional School Endowment, which continues to uphold Catholic education here in the Skagit Valley churches and beyond. As my tenure as pastor drew to a close, we needed a big gym and hall, and we were able to raise the money to build the magnificent St. Joseph Center, honoring the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace and their history, now a major gathering place, certainly for the school, but for the bigger community, even beyond the church. I'm thrilled to be back up in the Skagit Valley churches right now. I continue to support Catholic schools. I went 8 years, St. Anne's in Seattle, 4 years Seattle Prep and beyond to the seminary and on to Rome. I come back now to the Skagit Valley churches as committed and as enthused and as excited I am on behalf of Catholic education. So much so that I'm the vice chair of the Fulcrum Foundation, which supports all of our Catholic schools in Western Washington, including our beloved Immaculate Conception Regional School. Thank you for the support of our schools. I look forward to keeping this spirit up and at it for however number of years we still got on this planet Earth. I hope to be around for the 100th. Happy anniversary to all.
It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dallas DeMock, from the class of 2006. I was Dallas's youth minister way back in the day. Welcome, Dallas.
Hello, my name is Dallas DeMock, and I am an alumnus of Immaculate Conception Regional School in Mount Vernon, Washington. I began my education at ICRS in preschool and graduated from 8th grade in 2006. As a member of the 2006 graduating class, this is my 15th anniversary this year, and I can tell you a lot has happened since then. After graduating 8th grade, I went on to high school at Burlington Edison High School and graduated in 2010 as a co-valedictorian of my class. After high school, I went on to study civil engineering at Gonzaga University for 4 years and graduated in 2014. Following graduation in May of 2014, I moved to Houston, Texas to pursue my first job in the career of civil engineering. Moving away was tough, but I always fell back on the values I was taught throughout my years of Catholic education. Take one day at a time, treat others how you want to be treated, and live life to the fullest. The move to Houston helped my career start off well. After 2 years in Houston, I was ready to move back closer to family and the Pacific Northwest where I grew up, and I was able to find a civil engineering job closer to home. I've worked for a civil engineering consulting firm in downtown Seattle ever since. As you can tell, from ICRS to Gonzaga University, Catholic and Jesuit education has been a big part of my life. Ever since I was young, I've been immersed in the Christian ways of learning. ICRS provided me a solid foundation to continue towards my academic goals through high school and college. The community at ICRS was one that I will never forget because of the camaraderie and support I received. I credit ICRS experience with helping me pursue my dreams of attending Gonzaga University. Ever since I was in the fifth grade and I saw the basketball team at Gonzaga, I knew that was the place I wanted to go to college. With Gonzaga being a Catholic and Jesuit university, I knew it would be a great place for me. The Catholic education at ICRS inspired me to focus on things in high school that would help me get into Gonzaga. I was able to volunteer and help others without even thinking twice about it because I knew it was the right thing to do. With the background and education that I received from ICRS, I was able to pursue my dream of attending Gonzaga University. I started at Gonzaga in the fall of 2010 and graduated in May of 2014. The education that I received at Gonzaga was something that I will cherish forever. Gonzaga instills the Jesuit tradition in their learning and educates their students for lives of leadership and service for the common good. This speaks to me strongly as I now currently work as a civil engineer in the greater Seattle area, working on projects for the community. When I go to work every day, I think about how I can make my projects more beneficial for the community and improve the daily lives of others. The Catholic education from ICRS and Gonzaga prepared me well for life after school, and there is nothing that I would change about that. I've met many great people along the way, and some of these people are the closest friends that I have. The Catholic education brings together great people, and I am proud to say that I am one of them. Happy anniversary to my fellow alums, and congratulations to all the graduates this year. Cheers.
Our next speaker is our pastor, Father Tom. He is our leader and is passionate about Catholic education.
Hi, my name is Father Tom McMichael, privileged to be pastor here of the Skagit Valley Catholic Churches and Immaculate Conception Regional School. It's a privilege to be with you all this morning for the anniversary celebration of our wonderful school. Sister Angela, Father Paul, Principal Rodriguez, all of you gathered here have made our school what it is. And one of my favorite things in parishes or at schools to do is to look at pictures of those who have gone before me and before us. The 71 classes that have graduated from Immaculate Conception School since 1950. This school has been a wonderful gift to our parishes and to our wider community. And I think of the thousands of young people, adults who have been touched by this ministry. When we walk through the halls and see the graduating classes year after year, it's a wonderful gift. I also, though, want to talk a little bit about the future. I know Father Paul and Sister Angela will both be sharing with you. I'm thinking about the current situation at our school and how well we've come through this past year with the COVID crisis. It has not been easy, but thanks to the leadership of our principal, Gwen Rodriguez, to faculty, to staff, to parents, and all those volunteers who have helped, we have come through the past year very well. And I'm pleased to report that we're seeing increased numbers for enrollment for next year. And we're looking forward to a future that's even stronger than our past. That's the final thing I'll talk to you about, just briefly, our endowment. Because really the endowment that we support is all about belief in our school and the future that our school has. That it will continue to be present and to support parishioners and community members for decades, indeed, for centuries to come, God willing. We thank you for your support of the endowment, for being with us today, and we ask that you prayerfully consider continuing to support our school and its endowments so that we'll be here continuing to reach out and touch lives for generations to come. So again, happy anniversary, ICRS. Many, many more good years to you.
Our next special guest is Sister Angela, one of the longest standing principals here at Immaculate Conception Regional School. She was principal here for 13 years, from fall 1982 till spring 1996. 13 years. That means I only have 5 more years to do to catch up with her. Sister Angela, without further ado, welcome.
Happy anniversary, Immaculate Conception. The first year I taught, when Sister Norbert invited me to come to ICS, the first year I taught grade 7, and then the next year I taught grade 8, and from then on it was always grade 8. It was the very last classroom on the left-hand side. You go down the hallway through the arch. The first doorway was grade 7, the second doorway was grade 8, and then out the door. For me, Immaculate Conception had always had a Sister of St. Joseph as principal. And we had started the school, and so anyway, that was it. And so Una was leaving to go to Ireland, and the place was vacant, and I applied to the diocese, and then I applied to the school council, and they hired me, and that was it. But I have 5 years of teaching, so I was almost as long in the Skagit Valley as I was in Ireland as a young girl. I left Ireland when I was 19. No, I left Ireland when I was 20. So 3 years shy of my time in Ireland is my time in the Skagit. So I can still remember, though, our concerts, and you know, I cannot turn a note. I'm no good of a singer. So I cannot turn a note in a 10-acre field. I mean, forget it. And so I know tunes, and I know music, and I know music theory and all that. I know all of that. But to render it is, forget it. But I do remember that we had a concert. And my memory is of this 8th grade girl. She was fair-haired. I won't give her name. And she had a little sister in maybe about 1st grade. And they got up and they sang Memories from Cats. Well, now, I wouldn't know if she was off tune no more than anything else. But I do remember a couple of the teachers standing at the back, and they were sort of like, you know, and all I could think of was how sweet it was that this 8th grade student had taken her little 1st grade sister, and they were singing, you know, together. That was, to me, that was the. That's a memory I've never forgotten, and the song is Memories. And every time I hear that song, I see those 2 children up on the stage. But what I did like is when we were, you know, when the chips were down and we were running on fuel, or on what they call fumes rather than on petrol, the teachers loved the school as much as I did, even more so. And I can remember that they got together and they put on spaghetti dinners to try to provide themselves with funds for, say, field trips and things like that. That spirit was, you know, that's what fills me when I think of Immaculate Conception School, is that it was a united effort, and it was just, they were good times. Why I started it was, once it came budget time at the parish, they would all look and see that the biggest outlay was in the school. Well, naturally it would be. I mean, you've got all these teachers to pay, and you've got, you know, all of that. But the threat of this, oh, the school has to go, hanging over our heads was too much for me, and I decided that I knew of endowments, and at that time the diocese was beginning to go heavy, like sort of like encouraging the grade schools. The high schools had been doing endowments, and and universities, and that's when I thought that if we could take that burden, because the teachers were burdened by it too. You can't help but know when it's, do I have a job for next year? That's not fair. And so anyway, that's why we started it. I'm going back to the endowment because it's dear to my heart that we, the idea that we become almost independent to some extent. So that's my thought on the endowment. Don't let go of it. I said, just a thought. What if every family enrolled in Immaculate Conception School saved the price of 1 liter of 7-Up? That is $1.99 a week, and added a gratuitous penny. That makes it a saving of $104 a year. If only 100 families did this, we'd have $10,400 a year for the endowment fund. Not much, but it's more than was in it the day before. So anyway, it also means that by helping keeping the school open, the families of Immaculate Conception Regional School are giving good example in performing the spiritual work of mercy, of instructing the ignorant. I challenge as many families as possible to match my donation, and this amount is given in memory of Bonnie McCarthy.
That's awesome.
And so the check is in there here. So I know I didn't have to do it, but I wanted, if you put your money where your mouth is. So it's nice for the nun to say, "Oh, save it," But so anyway, that was my idea. I say 1,000,001 thanks for supporting Immaculate Conception Regional School. Keep up the good work.
Our next speaker is from the class of 2004, Catherine McGoffin-Lee.
So I started at Immaculate in kindergarten, and at that time it was Mrs. Cole, and I was here the whole way through, all the way to 8th grade with Mrs. Olson at that point in time. I talk with my nieces and nephews now, and some of the teachers are still here. Mrs. Tweet is still in 1st grade. I had her. One of the claim to fames that I was part of is my class was one of the double classes, so everything got pushed out a little bit as we went through all the grades in the school. And some of my most favorite memories were, PE class with Mr. Bell and doing math counts during recess. I still have friends from my class at Immaculate. I remember walking to church frequently, but not just walking to church. I loved how we were paired with brother-sister classes. So I don't know if they still do that, but when I was there, you would have an older class with a younger class, and you would walk to church together. And those are the kind of memories that just, for no particular reason, they stick out as being defining and shape me into who I am today. When I reflect on Catholic education as the life of education that I've had, I don't know at what point I learned 1 + 1 is 2, or I don't remember who taught me how to write the alphabet. In the same way, I don't know at what point I started believing in God. It just was part of my education in general, and it's as fundamental to me as a person as 1 + 1 is 2. And I was involved in all types of education. I went to public high school, had a great experience, but found my way to Gonzaga, where I got an accounting degree and met my now husband. And starting in Catholic education really put me on that trajectory to end up at Gonzaga someday. And I remember applying for universities, and they were all Catholic. That was my criteria, was small Catholic schools. That was where I wanted to do that next chapter of my life. And I think that's because at the very core, there was a part of me that needed more than just, science, math, and English, all those other subjects. There was a part of me that also wanted that development that was just fundamental to who I am. So now I live in the South Sound, and something I've found is that Catholic community is there for you wherever you live. And I still get a little nostalgic sitting in this church with my family, and this will always feel like my home. Not this particular church, but this church community will always feel like my parish, because this is where I grew up. But it's so nice to be able to move to a new town and look up the Catholic church in that community and look up the Catholic school there and know that that school is going to have a lot of the same similarities that I found important in my education. And it might not be ICRS, but it's second best in my mind, and I know that Catholic experience immediately connects me in a new community to other individuals who have the same values as me, and that's an important community to be part of. When I reflect on who I am and why I am who I am, there are so many people from the ICRS community who have shaped me into the person I am today. And quite frankly, before I even knew that was happening, these are the people who molded me into a smart, driven, Christ-like individual. And I'm so grateful for all those teachers and parents and truly the community that surrounds ICRS. Happy anniversary, alums. Here's to 71 years.
This next speaker needs no introduction. Interesting fact, Sister Angela hired her as a teacher in 1982. Without further ado, I introduce to you Mrs. Linda Richland, our 8th grade teacher.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Richland. I teach 8th grade at Immaculate Conception Regional School. I would like to start out by answering 2 burning questions. Number 1, yes, I'm still alive. And number 2, yes, I'm still teaching at Immaculate. You know, God really works in amazing ways. I was always a spiritual person, but I wasn't Catholic. I converted when I was 19 years old. I was married into a strong Catholic family, and it was important to them that I be Catholic. So I said, okay. And here I am today, celebrating 39 years in Catholic education. I began teaching at ICS in 1981 when I worked in the 4th grade class as I was getting my bachelor's degree in education. My cousin Laura Malahan was teaching 4th grade and I was in her classroom. Sister Angela, who was a former 8th grade teacher at the school, was the new principal. She hired me to teach remedial and enrichment education part-time. That was the beginning of my journey. The following year, Sister Angela hired me to teach kindergarten. And now, whenever I meet my former kindergartners, I always ask, are you okay? Can you read and write? Can you function in the world? I was a young, new teacher. I've seen and experienced many things at this school over the years. At one point, enrollment was so low that Sister Angela didn't hire a PE teacher for 2 years. We all taught our own PE. I was teaching 7th grade at the time. So we had an exciting PE curriculum of a wiffle ball World Series, outdoor bowling, in which we had empty pop bottles filled with sand that were our bowling pins, badminton, and a card and board game unit. Katie Annis and I created jazzercise routines for warm-ups, and the kids loved it. Times were so lean that Sister Angela got a really good deal on construction paper. The problem was the only colors she purchased were green and purple, and she wouldn't let us order any other paper till all of that was gone. So there were purple pumpkins in October and green valentines in February. That is when the teachers came up with the spaghetti dinner to raise funds for classroom art supply. Mrs. Hudson would entertain us all by singing to our customers. And there were prosperous years as well, years when we had 2 classes for several grades. We had a vice principal, we got a brand new bus, a big renovation of the interior of the school with new carpet, paint, new hardware, and blinds for the classrooms. The campus has grown and the school has changed as well. We added the Our Lady building. That was the library and the 4th grade room at one time. And then the Good Shepherd's building was constructed. That was the home of 4th and 5th grade. I was teaching 5th grade at the time. The kicker was that the construction wasn't finished before school started. So I taught 5th grade in the basement of the parish center for 3 weeks. The building was finished on a Tuesday, so that night a parent and I stayed up till 2 in the morning getting the classroom ready so that I could teach in it the next day. And I would have to say our greatest campus improvement was St. Joe's Center. I also taught in that space as well. I will never forget the day that Mike Phone, a parent instrumental in getting St. Joe's built, was gifted with a special basketball, and 180 students, kindergartners through 8th graders, marched behind him as he walked into St. Joe's and made the first ceremonial basket in that beautiful gym. There are so many traditions from past and present that make Immaculate Conception Regional School so exceptional. President's Day, we would gather on the playground around the painted U.S. map on a cold February day and share our knowledge about the geography of the United States. Once a quarter, we would have movie day. Mrs. Jansen would order some Disney movie and put it on the projector, and parents popped popcorn for an afternoon in the gym. We had First Friday Mass every month, and every February, 1st grade would lead us in the Love Mass. Every so often, we would have a skate night. The ICRS bus would take students and teachers to the local roller rink. And who could forget Hot Dog Day? We continue many wonderful traditions today. We start each year with prayer on the playground, the Veterans Day Assembly, our joyful Christmas programs, Catholic Schools Week, the Living Stations of the Cross, May Crowning, the Talent Show, Field Day, and Graduation Mass. There are so many significant moments that have taken place over the years. I have helped students understand politics and the voting process as we have elected 77 presidents since I have been teaching. I remember watching the historical inauguration of President Barack Obama at St. Joe's with the whole school. In class, we saw the white smoke on TV as new popes, John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis were elected, and we watched the funeral of Mother Teresa. I thank God that I was teaching at a Catholic school when my 7th graders watched the Space Shuttle Challenger explode, or the morning of 9/11, or the tsunami in Japan. We could all pray together and find comfort in our faith. ICRS is a special place. It builds a solid foundation and a sense of community. Some of my closest and dearest friends are those that I have met through this school. Those teachers I worked with 30 years ago are still an important part of my life. And my co-workers now are people I depend on for support, encouragement, and love. I have wonderful relationships with former students. I attend their high school and college graduations. I am their confirmation sponsor. I lecture at their weddings. What a gift that has been. It is interesting to note that those students who were the little imps, as Sister Angela would say, are the ones who couldn't wait to get out of Catholic school, are often the ones who choose Catholic education for their own children. I have been around long enough that I am teaching that second generation, and it is a blessing. For me, the person that converted at the age of 19, Immaculate Conception Regional School has truly been a place where my faith has been nurtured and has grown. God has chosen this ministry for me, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to teach hundreds of students academically, help them discover who they truly are, and affirm all their wonderful gifts they possess, and most of all, nurtured their faith and watched them grow spiritually. Our God was very clever in the way he put me here at ICRS. I am proud to have been a part of the 71-year legacy of ICRS. Happy anniversary, Immaculate Conception Regional School.
Our next speaker is Mr. Stephen Nickel. He is going to talk to you about legacy gifting. He is a current parent at our school and a wonderful support to our school as well.
My name is Steve Nicole. I'm an attorney here in Mount Vernon. I've been practicing 20 plus years. And both of my daughters are students here at Immaculate Conception and have been going here, my oldest since she was 3 and she's 12. And a big part of my practice as an attorney is estate planning and probate. So dealing with legacy giving as well as gifts, both living and legacy giving, is a big part of my practice. That practice includes helping individuals find and distribute gifts to charities during their lifetime and in their estate, and also finding ways to save money in taxes and to allow their gifts to have the most impact both for them and for where it ends up eventually. There are many types of legacy gifts. I'm not going to try to cover them all right now, and I'm not going to try to go into great detail because that would take more time than we have. But I can give a big brush stroke that will give you an idea of the multitude of ways that you can give to your favorite charities and how it can help them to move forward. The first and probably the most well-known is your last will and testament. Your last will and testament can take many forms. There can be contractual wills where you promise you'll never change it with another person who also does the same. There can be wills that pour over into a trust. There can be wills that create legacies that go from generation to generation, skipping so that you can save taxes in those times. Washington has some very specific laws regarding wills. You can't write your own will. You cannot do a holistic will unless you meet all the requirements of the law in Washington. So you have to have the proper witnesses, you have to have the notary, the language has to be correct. Also, there are some major traps that you have to avoid when writing a will, like the timing of the will versus other non-probate distributions you have made. The will can cancel them or they can cancel the will. So my recommendation is that you seek a professional before you write a will or attempt to write a will. It's pretty easy to find forms online, but those forms do not cover the traps that you might encounter on the way. Some different ways that you can designate distributions in a will is you can do a percentage. You can do a specific bequest and say, I give $10,000 to Immaculate Conception Regional School. Or you can break it down into various parts of the school. You don't have to give it to the endowment. You give it to the endowment, you can give it to parish, you can break it down how you want to break it down, and you can do it in percentages of the entire estate, or you can do it as a specific bequest of a certain amount. You can do a rest and residual clause. Rest and residual clause is where you give specific bequests to all the people you're going to give the specific bequest to, and then you turn around and say, I give everything that's left after these bequests are given to Immaculate Conception Regional School. These rest and residual clauses are nice because they allow the estate to be closed out fairly simply just by a distribution of whatever's left after all the costs and fees and distributions are made to the people that you wished, or entities that you wish to do it to. You can do a contingent will. A contingent will would be, you might say, I leave $100,000 to my children. However, if they should not survive me by 30 days, then those funds go to Immaculate Conception. So you're making a contingency, and that contingency can be any number of things. You can make it based on certain actions or acts occurring, graduating from school, fulfilling a certain requirement that you have for that person. Remember, the more complex a will, the more subject it is to being challenged. Specific bequests, I think I touched on a little bit. A specific bequest, again, is where you would just say, I give this amount to Immaculate Conception Regional School. And the next thing I'm going to touch on briefly are trusts. I'm not a big fan of trusts because basically you take and you put all the funds into the trust at the point and create it during your lifetime. And then the trust becomes a legal entity that owns those trusts. Now the good side to that is you can make it very flexible. You can make it a revocable trust, a non-revocable trust. You can make it a trust where you can only get the income from it, or you can make it a trust where you get the principal and the income. You can give the trustee tremendous amounts of power, or you can limit that power. So it's a very flexible instrument, and it does do something important. It takes the assets in your estate out of the estate and puts them in a non-probate status. So when you pass away, it doesn't have to go through probate, even if you do have a probate estate. Trusts are very similar in testamentary capacity as a will. You in your trust can say, I'm going to give this to Immaculate Conception Regional School. You can give a specific amount. You can give a reoccurring amount over time because a trust will continue even after you pass away, or it can continue if you wish it to. You can give percentages of income, percentages of principal. It's extremely flexible. And this makes it nice when you're sitting down and you're trying to figure out your estate planning process and you want to leave gifts, both because you support the institution and because it gives you great tax benefits. You have the flexibility to do what you want. And as long as you make the trust where it can be amended or revoked, you can change that over time as circumstances change. I have a trust right now, or not a trust, I apologize. I have an estate right now that's probably in excess of $30 million that, because of the nature of the giving that was done by the person who passed away, there'll be virtually no tax. Those funds will go to benefit the institutions and the people that it was intended to benefit. Various types of trusts that may apply in a legacy situation like this might be a charitable remainder trust. And this is where you can provide a fixed and variable income for yourself during your lifetime, and then the remainder can go into trust for whatever legacy it is that you decide to leave it to, partly to your kids, partly to Immaculate Conception Regional School. You can divide it. Again, it's extremely flexible, and you want to sit down and look at your financial situation, look at what you want to do with your family, look at what you want to do with your assets when you pass away, and then structure it so it goes where you want it, how you want it, for whatever amount of time you want it. You can receive income for the duration of the trust. You receive a charitable income tax deduction for those incomes that you receive. A big one, you can reduce the size of your taxable estate. In Washington State, I believe right now, if your estate is in excess of, I want to say 2.2 million, I'm sorry, I don't have that figure in my head. You're going to pay state taxes, pretty substantial, 10%. If your estate is in excess of, I believe, 12.5 million, and again, please don't hold me to that, you're going to pay substantial federal taxes in addition to your state taxes. So by charitable giving during your lifetime, you reduce the size of your estate, you reduce the taxes that you may pay in estate tax substantially. And this could be really big considering the talk that's in our politicians are putting forth right now about increasing estate tax, or the death tax as they call it. You can put it into annuities. You can put it into a unit trust where you're dealing with market value, it's invested, and the interest and the percentages that you get in return are distributed to the charitable institutions that you want. Charitable remainder trusts allow you to create a future interest that will give tax advantage, as well as allowing you to receive income during your lifetime. Non-probate assets, non-probate giving. Trusts are a way of non-probate giving because they don't go through the probate process. And in Washington State, if you own real property or if you own assets that are valued in excess of $200,000, you're required to go through probate. Probate can be a long and expensive process or not, depending on what the circumstances are surrounding it. General non-probate giving could be life insurance. You could make a life insurance policy during your lifetime and have the beneficiary of the lifetime of the life insurance policy be your charitable institution. So you make a life insurance policy and you have Immaculate Conception as a beneficiary. You can also divide it amongst numerous beneficiaries. So if you have a life insurance policy, you can leave some to your kids, you can leave some to your parents, you can leave some to your charitable institution, and break it up however you feel is correct. Payable on death benefits. A payable on death benefit is when you take an asset like a bank account and you say, okay, when I die, this is where this money's going to go. And it's a non-probate distribution. So you can say Immaculate Conception is going to get the full amount of my bank account when I go. You may not know what it's going to be at that time. It could be whatever amount it is that's left when you pass away. You can also do it with money market accounts. You can payable on death with retirement accounts, with virtually any type of financial asset like that. You can also do it with vehicles. You can do it with houses. Anything worth money, you can make a payable on death beneficiary designation to Immaculate Conception, and that's where it will go upon the date of death. Joint with right of survivorship is another non-probate thing that probably wouldn't apply so much, because then you have an interest during a lifetime. In conclusion, the big thing to keep in mind is legacy giving is one of the biggest assets that Immaculate Conception receives, both from its alumni, from its students, and from its members. And it's an important asset that they use responsibly. They place in endowments, they place into funds that aren't just for today. They're not something that's just being used up. They're something that's stretching over a long period of time to benefit the school, to benefit the church, to benefit the students. And it benefits tangible and intangible. The tangible benefits is the more money that the school has in endowments, the more money they have set aside for these type of things, the less they have to charge for tuition, for fees, for costs. The better the education they can provide, modern equipment, better school grounds, all the things that you would expect out of a first-class school like Immaculate Conception. So the giving is something that you can see right now and that will be seen for generations to come. So I encourage it, and I encourage you to meet with your professionals and talk about what you can do to provide a legacy gift to Immaculate Conception and integrate that into your giving program. Well, finally, and present time, I'm working on some fairly substantial gifts to Immaculate Conception. They're gifts that me as a professional, I always put forth different charitable organizations to my clients, and different organizations where legacy can make a big difference. And of course, they always have the choice themselves. And I'm working on one right now. You'll see the benefit of that coming down soon. As soon as we get the estate closed out. I've worked on others in the past, and I'm sure that I'll work on others in the future. So I would encourage everyone who has the ability to interact with people who can make legacies, or everybody who has their own legacy that they would like to leave to Immaculate Conception, to pursue that and keep in mind the good that it'll do and the people that it will benefit over time.
Thank you all for joining us today. I especially want to thank the class of 1969 who celebrated 50 years last year and made a class donation to the ICRS endowment. We're doing an ask for the endowment fund, which benefits all students. Your donation would be a legacy gift to the school. If you'd like to join Sister Angela's challenge and donate $104, click here. Thank you to my guest speakers today, my alumni friends, family, former teachers, pastors, parishioners, and school supporters. Thank you for being part of our history and our future. God bless you all.